IVM.
Hi, it's us again. It's Simplified. It's me, Chuck. There's Shriketh, and Naren's not on the show, unfortunately. This week we have Tony, who you might remember came on our year-end episodes a few months ago. And together, the three of us look at the second part of our World Cup retrospective, where we look at each World Cup and talk about what happened and some highlights and funny incidents and stats and things like that. And this episode, we covered World Cups 96 to 2019. Yes, even the random ones that happened between 99 and 2011, whatever those were. So join us on the other side of this break for a whole bunch of cricket nerdism.
Are you looking for India's most awesome cricket podcast? Are you now tired of listening to the same old guys drone on about cricket everywhere? Edges and Sledges is a weekly cricket podcast hosted by three fans of the game, Varun, DJ, and myself, Ashwin. It was established in early 2018, has over 60 episodes now, and is of course now proud to be on the IVM podcast network. Each week, we get together from three different time zones, the USA, the UK, and Singapore, and we talk about things from the world of cricket, with a focus on Indian cricket. We often interview special guests from all around the world, including former cricketers and cricket media personalities. So check out Edges and Sledges, the cricket podcast, now on the IVM network.
Hello and welcome to Simplified, the best podcast to come out of Malad, but you might not know that because the other show beat us on boundaries. So we're today looking at the part 2 of World Cup cricket, and where we're going to be talking about World Cups from 96 onward all the way to this very eventful World Cup recently concluded in 2019. And we have a special guest in the studio today, filling in for a very absent Naren, and that is Tony. Hello, Tony.
Hi. So eagle-eared listeners might remember that Tony appeared on our year-end episodes, was it?
That's right.
Yeah, and he will be appearing on another show. So a lot of you might be wondering if you're getting this guy to just fill in for Naren randomly, then what is he good for? And you will find that out within a month. Isn't that so, Tony?
Suspenseful music.
Okay.
So let us begin by introducing ourselves in the usual episode themed way that we do. So let's begin by introducing ourselves with our best cricket playing moments.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm Shriketh, and my best cricket playing moment was I was normally I was a professional fielder when I used to play. So I was decent at catching the ball, but not at any of the real cricket playing stuff. So I think we were playing one team match, and I was standing at one somewhere basically out of the way. So I was standing behind the batsman somewhere over there, and I was eating my food. Actually, I was eating a roll.
Nice.
And the batsman hooked the ball, and it flew right at me, and I had the roll in my left hand, and literally more than anything else, just to save my face, I stuck my hand out and caught the ball.
Okay.
So became a very legendary catch. I was highly celebrated and in school because it was actually a proper match, holding one roll in one hand and caught with the other. So that was my greatest cricket playing moment.
And Nasir Hussain said, "You cannot do that, Ben Stokes." This is the origin story of that.
Fantastic.
Okay, I am Chuck, and I used to be a terrible cricket player, as with most sports actually. Thank goodness I discovered cycling later in life. So this was in Bahrain when I just about discovered cricket itself, right, which was around 96, 97 or something like that, 97. And I had joined these bunch of guys really and I was in 8th standard or something at that time. All these 10th, 12th, 11th kids would play cricket in an abandoned parking lot or something, and I just joined them because cricket was cool and whatever. I was just standing there making jokes with other hapless fielders, all of us were dismissed to the boundary. You stand over here types, and I had no clue what was happening throughout the match. I was just enjoying being part of the entire thing. And then suddenly later, our team was batting, and a collapse happened, and I don't know how the situation ended up happening, but I had to face the last ball and get 4 runs off it. I hit the ball somewhere. Both teams celebrated. So I think everybody just decided, TK, good match. So we will call it a draw or something. So I'm not
in
quite...
the end, cricket won.
Yeah, so I don't know whether I'm a Martin Guptill or whether I'm a Rishikesh Kanitkar, but I will retain memories of both. Basically, that is my probably the only cricket memory. Actually, I think I realized that it couldn't get any better or worse from there, so I decided never to play a match again.
You don't know if you won or lost.
Yeah, because it went off somewhere which wasn't a designated boundary area. Our team celebrated saying it was a 4. The other team said no, he scored only 1 or 2.
This is why you're a New Zealand fan. You're meant to be.
Oh. Fantastic.
Okay, and that acerbic wit that you hear is none other than Tony Sebastian, who growing up in the bylanes of Palarivattam would have definitely played some gully cricket.
Yeah.
So you have better memories than us.
So, I mean, I think this is a universal thing. Being a younger sibling, most of my childhood was spent bowling to my brother.
That's a great analysis to do. We should actually take all the fast bowlers from India from the last 20 years and see whether they were younger siblings.
Absolutely.
Great idea.
So, the unfortunate thing was that my school or class had very strict rules saying you have to, bowl properly. And unfortunately, I used to chuck. I mean...
Hello?
Yeah. And they used to call me out on it. So basically, I would never be able to bowl. And then this one random innings happened where I obviously wasn't great with the bat or anything. But suddenly one day I was middling everything. And I remember my score of 33 not out with one pull to fine leg being the highlight. So yeah, but then unfortunately the bell rang and I never rediscovered that form ever again.
I thought you were going to say the bell rang and you woke
legendary
up.
innings have been cut short by the recess bell.
No, I thought he was going to say the bell rang and then he woke up. Okay. Come, we have a lot of World Cup to cover.
Yeah, so moving quickly to our profundity of the day, which is very cricket themed.
Of course, we cannot skip that, yes.
Yes, so it has this generic cricketer playing a cover drive on it, and it goes hence.
Okay.
Life is like cricket. Don't lose your wicket. Try to score a century. Never forget your boundary. And if you get out, never get put off because God is the third umpire. Good day.
And at the end of it, there will be a super over anyway.
Clearly.
I don't know why that's funny, but anyway. So, last time we ended with the 92 World Cup, which we sort of said was like evolution forward because teams started playing in color and there was floodlights and the competition actually made money instead of having to organize a random test tournament to fund it. You could sense that changes in the air. Innovations were happening, pinch hitters were happening, and all these things just sort of went to their natural next step in the 96 World Cup. Yeah,
so the 96 World Cup was one of the biggest and most exciting ones that came about, and especially primarily fueled by the fact that it was the largest World Cup of the time where they included all 3 associate members into the World Cup. So we suddenly saw the likes of Kenya, Netherlands and the UAE actually coming into the World Cup. So the World Cup was played in India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. India hosted 17 matches, Pakistan hosted 16 and Sri Lanka hosted 4. Now, with those 4 matches actually caused a lot of controversy because there was the LTT was in full force in Sri Lanka at that time. So Australia and the West Indies actually refused to send their teams to Sri Lanka, and so there was a lot of debate and a lot of controversy with a lot of back and forth. And finally, the ICC ruled that Sri Lanka was given both those games on forfeit. So Sri Lanka actually automatically qualified for the quarterfinals before even playing a game. So yeah, I mean, not that they needed any help, because they had at the time. One of the most explosive opening pairs of all time, Sanath Jayasuriya and Romesh Kaluvidarna, who were this actually World Cup was one of the pioneering ones because this opening pair, Sanath Jayasuriya and Romesh Kaluvidarna, were kind of like pioneers of opening over, like loading up,
Fielding
front loading
restrictions.
of
Taking care of the first
front
15
loading of
overs.
runs in the first 15 overs with fielding restrictions. So at a time when 50 or 60 runs in the first 15 overs were considered adequate, Sri Lanka scored like 117 in those overs against India, 123 against Kenya, 121 against England in the quarterfinal, and 86 against India in the semi-final. So these guys were like were murdering the bowlers right up front and like setting the target up for the rest of the guys to come and tuku towards the end.
Okay, the quarterfinal stage of this World Cup was pretty interesting. But before then, there were a few random individual performances here and there that I'd like to talk about. This was around the time when Sachin just started becoming Sachin, by which what I mean is he would play well and the rest of the team wouldn't. There were a couple of innings that he played really well, like 137 against Sri Lanka, which was his highest score for a long time. What else? There are a couple of upsets, actually. You might remember West Indies being beaten by Kenya by a massive 73 runs, actually. That was pretty huge. West Indies beat Australia, and that favor would be returned in the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, actually. There was a game in which and high scores started becoming a thing. Sri Lanka scored 398 for 5, which is the highest ODI score till that crazy Australia South Africa game. Gary Kirsten in another match scored 188, and if Gary Kirsten can score 188 in an ODI, I'm sorry, something is wrong. A few other things here and there, but Vinod Kambli even scored a century. But all these were just set up.
Not what Vinod Kambli is most famous for in this World Cup.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
So I have an interesting question for you, but we all remember Sanath Jayasuriya and Kalavitarna blasting Sri Lanka to great starts.
Yeah.
But this I picked up from the Cricket Saddest Hour. Do you know how many runs Kalavitarna scored in the World Cup?
Very few, right?
He scored 73 runs in 6 matches.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, everybody says, and it's great that you brought that up, actually. So Andy Zaltzman and Jarrod Kimber do like a much funnier version of what we are trying to do. We should probably check that out as well. Yeah, actually, they didn't score all that many runs. In fact, the man of the series, Sanath Jayasuriya, didn't even feature in the top 5 run scorers of the tournament. But it was just a sheer impact. Like, and for example, he scored 82 of just 44 balls against England in the first quarterfinal. It was more the feel.
Shock and awe.
The shock and awe. Yeah. You know, there are some guitarists who are great on speed, like Yngwie Malmsteen, but then there are others who are like just pure feel, like David Gilmour. So I guess Jayasuriya is sort of like that. I think that's actually a very, very painful analogy.
It's like Naren on this podcast. Like he doesn't speak all that much, but sheer impact.
Sheer impact, yeah. The second quarterfinal was India versus Pakistan, and one of the greatest matches of all time, at least if you are an Ajay Jadeja, Navjot Sidhu, or Venkatesh Prasad fan.
Best match ever.
Yeah, best.
Always Venkatesh Prasad fan. Always.
And Anil Kumble also.
Yeah, iconic match. We're not getting into that too much. That's all that happened. The fourth quarterfinal was New Zealand versus Australia, and the third quarterfinal was West Indies versus South Africa. Now, continuing in their proud tradition of finding innovative ways of getting knocked out of World Cups, South Africa over here had a brainwave. Now, they were doing extremely well throughout the tournament. In particular, Alan Donald was playing really well, and up comes the quarterfinal. Hansi Cronje has this weird idea of resting Alan Donald, saying that West Indies were an easy opposition. We should be able to beat them easily and go through to the semi-final. So I'm resting Alan Donald. So they put in Paul Adams in their place on a pitch that was not very helpful for turners. Brian Lara scored 111, knocking the socks out of the South African spinners, and that is how South Africa got knocked out of the 96 World Cup. We shall revisit this in the next.
Yeah. South Africa has a rich history of getting knocked out in the most painfully bizarre ways.
We will visit these.
Their journey is so painful that no one even remembers this knockout.
Okay, moving on to the semis.
So moving on to the semis, and this is, even though South Africa's pain is spread across World Cup, this was one of the most painful World Cups for Indians, at least, because of the the semi-finals against Sri Lanka. So, well, to be fair, Sri Lanka never really gave India a chance in this match. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, India like had slumped to 120 for 8 in the 35th over while chasing like 251, and this 120 for 8 actually came after Sachin leading India to 98 for 1. We are smack bang in the era of Sachin खेला उसके बाद बाकी सब ने टट्टी कर दिया. So these guys had like fully gone out, 120 for 8, no hope left, and while India could have taken the New Zealand/South Africa option of an honorable defeat, the Indian crowd won't especially stand for this. So bottles were being thrown onto the pitch, stuff was being set fire to in the stands, and at this point, a certain World Cup winning captain turned match referee, Mr. Clive Lloyd, got up and said that screw abandoning the match and doing it again. Let's just, for the very first time in cricket history, decided to award the match to Sri Lanka by default. Because it was just like, okay, their crowd is too rowdy. They are obviously going to win. We all know the logical conclusion here. Just gave them the match.
So that's the third match in this tournament that Sri Lanka won without winning.
Yeah.
Without winning. I mean, and this is the most frustrating part. Honestly, if you were to write the history in that way of saying Sri Lanka won this tournament without winning 3 matches, won this tournament without actually, like, they were given victory for matches they did not win, it's actually quite unfair because Sri Lanka was the best team in this tournament.
Hey, this is the England argument in 2019 also.
We'll circle back to that. Anyway, in the other semi-final, it was quite a thrilling match actually. I don't remember the exact details, but it was West Indies versus Australia. Australia were in a very bad spot, then in a very good spot, and then in a very bad spot, and then West Indies just needed they needed very few runs to win, and then they lost 7 wickets for some 30 runs in 50 balls or something. It was that man Shane Warne again. He took 4 in that game, and I think that was probably the most thrilling game of that World Cup. And then we went on to the finals, where of course we know what happened.
And the finals were, finally enough, for all their flamboyance through the entire tournament. While chasing, Sri Lanka lost both their openers before the score was 30, and they were but rescued by one other very stylish and very flamboyant batsman called Arvinda De Silva, who played a match-winning knock of 170 not out.
Tournament winning
knock of 107 and guided Sri Lanka through. So, I mean, I think at that time, this was pretty much the first World Cup I saw.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think for a lot of people, that would be the first World Cup that they would have ever saw or been involved with.
Yeah, so, I mean, watching like an Arjuna Ranatunga, even though as an Indian, watching an Arjuna Ranatunga going up there and picking up the World Cup, like, felt like a proud moment for like subcontinent.
Yeah. Dude, you wanted to be Ranatunga, dude.
Yeah, he was so cool, and he was Dhoni before like Dhoni became a brand.
He was Dhoni who didn't go to the gym. Let's put it that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the man didn't even bother running. So that was that. Like Chuck said earlier, Sanat Jayasuriya was the man of the series, and for all of his fantastic knocks. And then we moved on to the 1999 World Cup.
But sorry, my favorite... so 2 things about the 96 World Cup. If you hate Sanjay Manjrekar like we all do because he's in the commentary box now, go back and watch a catch he took in the 96 World Cup. It's right up there with the very best. And also a historical prediction about the 96 World Cup is it's the last World Cup final that will be played in Pakistan ever in history.
Yeah, circling back to that point, we'll come back to that when we talk about the 2011 World Cup. But moving on to the 99 World Cup, the first World Cup, incidentally, or the only World Cup, and probably the only World Cup in the future as well, to be held only 3 years after the previous one.
Yeah, and also this was held over 5 countries.
Yeah, so this was exactly. It was held across 4 countries. 4 countries: Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and Netherlands. Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and Netherlands.
And England.
And England, of course. So, sorry, I took England for granted. But yeah,
you Brexited them from the world.
They're not relevant anyway.
Okay, this World Cup can largely be summed up in 4 words: that semi-final and Lance Klusener. And Lance
Yes.
Klusner. That's
and
it.
Lance Klusner.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but to be fair, also a very very historic India versus Pakistan match,
Yeah.
which was in fact saying that this was smack bang in the middle of the Kargil conflict. So
Kargil
India and
War,
Pakistan,
right? Yeah.
Kargil War, yeah. So they were actually fighting the battle. The armies were actually fighting the battle while the match was happening, which is probably probably the only time this has happened in the history of sport, where two countries are playing each
At
other
war,
while
yeah.
they are at war, like
Yeah.
literally in the middle of the war.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this was that match itself was great for India, because they did not set really a really big target for Pakistan. They were 227 for 6, with Dravid scoring 61. But a great fast medium performance by a certain Mr. Venkatesh Prasad, who took 5 for 27, and I mean they kind of like pulled it along there. And one of the best quotes, actually, I was looking up the Cricinfo commentary on this particular match, and Venkatesh Prasad, when he was taking the Man of the Match award, he literally says this as a quote to the presenter: Thank you to the team. Everyone chipped in with wickets except Mohanty.
I mean, that's the only way you'll remember Mohanty.
Debashish Mohanty has taken 10 wickets in a first-class innings, may I remind you. Anyway.
This was also the World Cup when India scored 373 against Sri Lanka in Taunton.
Yes.
In 99.
Yes, and where Ganguly scored 183 famously. And I had just got my 4th semester marks or something from school or something. And I scored 373 out of 500. And my mom scolded me. I said, this is my way of being patriotic. By scoring how much India... This excuse did not fly.
But 183 is the score that India scored to win the World Cup finals.
Yes.
Saurav Ganguly's highest score, Virat Kohli's highest score, and MS Dhoni's highest score. So, 183 is what you should aspire to.
Wow, you can't, and 183 seconds is the length of a national. No, let's not go there. Let's not go there. Okay. What else do we need to know about this World Cup? Lance Klusner, like a force of nature throughout, right? On that Sadist Tower podcast that you're talking about, they said, I remember Jarrod Kimber was talking about how Lance Klusner was just the best ODI cricketer at the time. It's really hard to disagree with that. I mean, you just had to see, man, what a force of nature he was. And for me, this was peak India. Like, when they were good, they were very good. They were 373 versus the World Cup champions at that point of time, who still had a lot of good players. But when they were bad, they were really bad. Example, the 3-run loss to Zimbabwe, where Henry Olonga took those wickets at the end. There were all sorts of things. Just a few other random things. Scotland played their first ever World Cup, and Gavin Hamilton played extremely well, so much so that England said, hey, why wouldn't you come and play test cricket for us? Then
this was also the World Cup when Shane Warne made the most improbable comeback ever. He had just been dropped for a test against West Indies. He came back into the side and he picked up in the semi-final and just blew away Pakistan in the finals. He was in his...
He's always a guy for the big occasion, right? Like that 96 quarterfinal also. Do you know who the top run scorer of this World Cup was?
The top run scorer was...
No cheating. If you don't know it, you don't know it. It's Dravid.
Really?
Dravid, you don't expect Dravid to be the top scorer at a World Cup, right? Anyway, New Zealand versus Pakistan was one very boring semi-final. The other semi-final was Australia versus South Africa. And listen, so much has been spoken about this already. I don't think we need to really get into this again and again.
If only there was a boundary count.
If only there was a boundary count.
I mean, this match was so epic that it actually its build-up starts from the Super 6 match between the two sides. So they played against each other there, and with the incredible and legendary dropped catch by Gibbs at short mid wicket, where he tried to throw up the ball before actually catching it. So, and then he dropped the chance, and Steve Waugh actually went up to him and said, "You've just dropped the World Cup."
Although that is still apocryphal.
Waugh denied saying this, but the quote, of course, lives on, because
of course.
Why let the truth get in the way of a good story?
This is 2019 after all. What are facts?
Okay, everyone knows what happens next, and I think I will cry again if I relive that. But In fact,
as legend has it here, the fourth ball of the last over, Klusner mishits the ball to Mark Waugh at mid-off, and for some freaking reason, Mr. Alan Donald decides to just watch. Like, he is like, "Okay, ball ja raha hai, I'll chill, we have time. And Klusner has made his way to the other end.
Mhm.
Alan Donald then decides to like run across, and Damien Fleming just rolled it across to Gilchrist, and he was out for what is called a diamond duck. And and then afterwards, so it became so crazy that the Times rated South Africa's choke as the second biggest sporting choke of all time. Sean Pollock revealed that when betting at the Durban July horse race shortly after the match, he was told, "Whatever you do, don't bet on number 10, he doesn't run."
Anyway, there's enough of that match has been said. There are lots of great articles that have been written about this game as well. That's the thing about Australia versus South Africa. It brings out great literature. We will take a small break, and then we are going to come back and look at that other blob of World Cups that just seemed to happen between 99 and 2011, which nobody really knows about. So we'll come back in a bit.
Hey everybody, welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. You know, the greatest place on earth to work on. If you're interested in working with us, please do send us your resume, careers@indusvox.com. We're looking for people in business roles. We're looking for people in creative roles. We're looking for audio engineers, graphic designers, all kinds of things. So please do apply. Also wanted to ask everybody, please tell a friend about your favorite podcast on the IVM network. We really do depend on your word of mouth. You are our biggest ambassadors, and we'd really, really appreciate all of your support. Also, if you are enjoying what you listen to, take a screenshot, tag us on social media, and we will repost that. This week on Cyrus Said, Cyrus is joined by Eva Butt. She's the head of Bollywood content at 9X Media. Eva recounts some of her favorite and not so favorite experiences interviewing Bollywood celebs, her new podcast, 9XM Soundcast, available on the IVM Podcast Network, and displays her singing talent. This week we're launching a new podcast called Football Shootball. It's hosted by three diehard football fans, Gaurav Sapre, Sivram Parmeswaran, and Karthik Iyer. Tune in to get your weekly football fix that brings in-depth analysis along with unhinged banter. First episode releases on Wednesday, 7th of August. On the season finale of Not Just Dansak, Bhavi Bright Prasen Patel meets Chef Bawa Farhad Kurkaria, also the co-host of Keeping It Queer. They talk about the varieties of Dansaks and how there's no one way of cooking it. On Simplified, Chuck and Naren are joined by guests Tony Sebastian for part 2 of the history of the Cricket World Cup. On Mr. and Mrs. Binge Watch, Janice and Anirudh talk about the critically acclaimed Emmy-nominated show When They See Us. On The Origin of Things, Chuck narrates a story about the early internet, smut, and an unlikely investment. On What a Player, Mikhail Almeida is joined by comedian Joel D'Souza to discuss cricket, football, Formula One, and of course, darts. On the Habit Coach podcast, Ashton Doctor talks about journaling and narrates examples of prominent people who maintain journals of their lives. He also explains how to keep a journal and learn more about your mind. On the Empowering series, Zarina Poonawalla is joined by the managing director of Genetic Callnet Consultancy, Vishal Keswani. They talk about how you can discover a suitable career and how to deal with conflicts in any industry. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
And welcome back to this second retrospective of World Cups. Hi Shriketh, hi me, hi Naren.
Hello.
Oh wait, hi Tony.
Hello.
Tony is still here, an able substitute, the best substitute since
I'm like Jadeja in the 2019
sure,
World
yeah.
Cup.
Jadeja.
Oh,
Fielding, basically.
Ravindra. sorry, we are still old
That
school.
one.
That one, no. Anyway,
Yeah.
so the 2003 World Cup in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Kenya.
Yes.
Won by Australia, lost by India, and lots of things happened in that World Cup.
Yeah, so in fact, again, political unrest caused England to forfeit their match. New Zealand forfeited their match against Kenya due to security reasons.
Yeah.
Shane Warne got sent back.
Substance abuse, yeah.
Because of trying out a banned diuretic, and he said, in his defense, he said, "I had taken a fluid pill on the advice of my mother," which clearly did not fly with the people who were testing it. Also, other people who left the tournament, although in disgrace from their country's point of view at the time, but otherwise in pretty good honor, were Andy Flower and Henry Olonga.
Oh, yeah.
Who wore black armbands in their opening game to protest against Mugabe and the non-democratic rule in Zimbabwe. So in fact, Henry Olonga, so while Andy Flower was a white guy who was not going to be prosecuted heavily for it, he was reprimanded. Henry Olonga literally at the end of the match got into a car and fled the country and never returned back to Zimbabwe again.
And I think he's building a pretty good career as a singer for himself. I saw him
Singer.
on a reality.
So, yeah, so he's been on The Voice, and he's a beautiful singer.
Yeah.
He only got, but however he got eliminated in the battle round somewhere in the middle. But,
okay. That's another simplified.
Yeah, that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
But this particular one, this particular 2003 World Cup, other than India's magical route to the finals through some pretty great victories and all that stuff,
and a bit of luck because they had Kenya to face in the semi-finals.
In the semi-finals, which was quite fortuitous. What we will be talking about is South Africa. Another creatively amazing way South Africa.
This is incredible. Just when you think South Africa has invented like every possible way of getting knocked out of World Cups, this is incredible. Shrike, this is all yours. I'm going to let you have the glory for this.
This is just brilliant. Like here, okay, South Africa was told, okay, they were chasing 229. Now, the point is the target is 230. But the message that was given to Mark Boucher, who was batting at the time, because of the Duckworth-Lewis method, was told that the target is 229. Now, Mark Boucher, he said that, okay, the fifth, so there were 45 overs, the rain was looming, they were like not sure how many overs they will play further. He hit Muthaiya Muralidharan for 6 of the 5th ball and reached 229. And he celebrated by like pumping his fist and all that. In fact, to emphasize his point, the next ball he just gently pushed it to gently like defended it so that he wouldn't have to like lose another wicket or like screw up the calculation. So he actually let go of the last ball, and then what it did was that they reached the dressing room again to be told that 230 was the score that was required. 229 led to a tie, and eventually because of the tie, they got knocked out again. So in fact, Eric Simmons, who was the South Africa coach, admitted that he had given a copy of the Duckworth-Lewis calculations to Nicky Boye, who was the 12th man. And he was going to go and give it to them at the start of the 46th over.
Amazing.
He was waiting there with the calculations, but at the start of the 46th over never happened because the rain came back.
Superb.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you need to explain, because it's simplified, that D by L basically results in something called a par score, which puts teams at the calculated level, and it basically looks at wickets as resources. So if you lose another wicket, then basically the par score also changes, which is why Boucher in his infinite wisdom defended the last ball, saying, "Why take an unnecessary risk?"
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, in fact, they were also. In fact, it created so much controversy, and people were hating on the Duckworth-Lewis method so much that actually Frank Duckworth made a statement. He's like, people are always going to be unhappy if they lose. South Africa lost because of their own mistake. Both Sean Pollock and Sanath Jayasuriya had the same papers with the run rate. Sanath had it right and Sean did. He actually made a press statement about this and said, at the end of the day, the biggest casualty of this particular thing was Sean Pollock himself, who got sacked at the end of this as a captain. So literally maths actually caused him to lose his captaincy. So this is as Sharma ji ka beta problem as you can get.
Yeah, pay attention, school kids. Anyway, this World Cup also saw some pretty interesting individual performance, and I'm going to run through them. One of them was Gilchrist walking during the semi-finals, which, that act of sportsmanship, etc., all that.
From an Australian
player. Malinga took 4 wickets in 4 balls, if you remember. And this was when I think they were playing against South Africa, and South Africa were coasting to win. And he took this hat-trick and then a 4th, and people were like, shit, can this guy actually get these guys to win?
Malinga was there in 2003.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty awesome. Then the top scorer was Sachin with a massive 673 runs.
Yeah, that's a record for the World Cup. And what is a very interesting fact here is that in this entire World Cup, he only scored one century.
One century, yeah. Which Indian scored 3?
Ganguly.
Ganguly.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Ganguly scored 3.
The highest score of this World Cup was by Craig Wishart, if you remember that guy. 172 not out.
Zimbabwe.
Voss took a hat-trick. Okay, Voss in a match against Bangladesh, the match started like this. Wicket, 4 wicket. So, it was 4 for 4 of...
you're running out of time in the studio when Chuck doesn't say Voss's full name just for that.
Okay. Bowlers had a good time in this World Cup. Do you know how many 6-wicket hauls there were in this World Cup, in the 2003 World Cup?
One very famous
Seven.
is Nehra, 6 for 23.
Yeah. Okay. You were close. There were 5. McGrath and Beichel both took 7, and then Nehra, of course, took 6 for 23. As did Bond, and was in that match took 6 for 25.
Nehra's banana vomit. Never forget.
Banana vomit. Yes.
Banana
That is the 2003 World Cup, which was held in South Africa.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to add?
We are not.
No, that's
Okay. Sorry.
So I'm guessing we are not talking about the 2007 World Cup at all because it didn't happen.
Yeah, the 2007 World Cup. Okay, I think every cricket fan has some idea of every World Cup that existed except the 2007 World Cup. Like,
Yeah.
what happened? Like, the
And
one.
to be fair, this was the largest ever World Cup.
Because of Dwayne Leverock's presence.
Yeah, I guess that's the only thing that happened. Like, West Indies hosted it. You remember it ending in darkness, which was like farcical, right? Like, everybody just wanted the match to end, and Jayawardena said, yeah, we are not going to win, just give the match, whatever. And they insisted on playing the last 3 overs out. That was pretty much first. But apart from that, what happened in the 2000s? Okay. One thing
India
that happened.
lost to Bangladesh.
India lost to Bangladesh. I think this is the first time that South Africa got knocked out on properly. Like, they
On
played
merit,
badly.
yeah.
On merit or demerit, whatever.
Yeah, and the other thing that we mentioned earlier, there were 2 earth-shaking events at this World Cup. One was Dwayne Leverock's catch,
Leverock landing.
and
And
then
the other was
Bob Woolmer's.
Woolmer's death. So,
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, Bob Woolmer, who was the Pakistani coach, was found dead the day after Pakistan got knocked out of the World Cup. So now, I mean, there was a lot of back and forth as far as whether his death was. His death was suspicious because, it happened the day after Pakistan got knocked out.
And also, it
But
was
like
Pakistan.
Jamaican police eventually ruled it out and said that it was because of cardiac arrest or whatever. But again, there was like Woolmer did have a lot of past as far as ball tampering was concerned. So Woolmer had made a whole bunch of claims saying that ball tampering should be allowed in cricket and stuff like that. So a lot of people say that he had actually participated in that and worked with bookies for that, and maybe he refused to do or there was some shady stuff as far as that was concerned. So saying that bookies were responsible for his death.
It's
So
very difficult to tamper the ball
time.
from the coach's seat. Is all I'm saying.
Fair.
But basically, the 2007 World Cup was so shit that they basically had a World T20
World
Cup
Cup.
in the same year, and India won it and basically revolutionized the whole
Everything.
cricket sport. So, 2007 World Cup is the best.
So you're making an argument that if the 2007 World Cup, the actual one, was better,
Yeah.
then IPL probably wouldn't be around.
Yeah, correct.
Wow.
Butterfly effect, like we wouldn't
Wow.
be here in the studio right now.
No, we'd still be here. We'd be talking about whatever, the World Test Championship or something.
Ajinkya Rahane, the captain of the Indian cricket team.
Oh wow. Okay.
There's one quick thing that we need to talk about 2007 on the
tell
topic of So the whole thing about 2007 World Cup, like I think Tony referred to, is that how Mashrafi Murtaza, Tamim Iqbal, Mushfiqur Rahim, and Shakib Al Hasan are responsible for the changing the face of cricket as we know it.
Oh.
So it was almost like the India's loss to Bangladesh was the Franz Ferdinand moment of cricket, because India lost to Bangladesh. Kapil Dev outbursts against the BCCI, starts a new tournament called ICL. The league is like the basement. It doesn't grab the attention, but it's a radical new format. And then afterwards goes to something like the IPL, BCCI forming the IPL. The ICL goes under, but the IPL is formed, and cricket as we know it has changed. So that one particular match actually was responsible for changing the face of cricket overall.
So what does Franz
Best
Ferdinand
World
have to
Cup
do with
ever.
it?
Like it was like India losing to Pakistan, India losing to Bangladesh was the Franz Ferdinand moment, was the moment that triggered the World War I. Right?
Oh, you're talking about World War. I thought you were talking about the English rock band. What do these guys have to do with anything?
Oh man,
Like,
Franz
wow.
Ferdinand,
Archduke
Franz
is
Ferdinand
Oh,
the
that
key
fascinated.
Arey, that guy. Huh. Whoa.
Anyway,
I was literally
moving
thinking
very quickly to the 2011 World Cup.
where Oasis had a big role to play. Okay, 2011 World Cup. Okay, India. Yes,
Hosted by
India.
Yeah, this is the
India,
where you
Bangladesh,
win.
and eventually
Where were
Sri
you
Lanka.
when? Yeah.
Start the tuk-tuk.
Yeah, so
Start the
this was
tuk-tuk.
actually yeah,
Wow.
start the tuk-tuk.
I love how Tony's come and by-hearted Cricinfo commentary for all the...
Yeah, but this is actually, Pakistan was supposed to be a co-host, but of course, after the 2009 attack on Sri Lanka's national team in Lahore, the entire thing was all of Pakistan's matches were moved to
Dubai?
India as well as Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Oh,
in fact,
okay.
there was a tweet by ICC recently that said World Cup played in India, India won. World Cup played in Australia, Australia won. World Cup played in England, England won. And I think
Next
what is
World
a
Cup
parody
is in
account of the Pakistan Cricket Board saying, "मतलब हम ना ही समझे."
2011 World Cup, of course, India won.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers what happened in the final. What happened before?
Yeah. So what happened before was it was the end of Australia's famous 34 match unbeaten streak.
Incredible.
Where so they finally went down to Pakistan at the Premadasa, and they also lost to India in the quarterfinal. So they lost twice in the tournament, and it was the first time since 1992 in a World Cup final or semi-final did not feature Australia.
Oh,
So
wow.
so I mean, 1999 to 2011. So Australia did not lose a World Cup match for more than a decade, and so in fact, and the last loss that they had was against which team before their entire streak?
Sri Lanka.
Against Pakistan itself. They lost to Pakistan.
Oh, yeah.
So they lost to Pakistan in the previous match.
92 World Cup,
92.
Yeah, so
96 they lost, no?
99, 99.
99 World Cup, yeah. So, and in the final against, so one weird thing happened in the final against India versus Sri Lanka, which was loud crowd noise prevented match referee Jeff Crow from hearing the Sri Lankan captain Kara's call for the toss. So the toss had to be redone, which is rare anyway, which has probably never been done, and it had to be done in the World Cup final. So, and also another odd thing that happened was there was, this was actually, there is a lot of complaint about bias towards Indians, especially with one of the particular incidents that happened when India versus England match was happening. There was Ian Bell was given out for leg before wicket, and so it was. The umpire kind of used it from so there's a particular rule that they said about 2.5 meters from the stumps. The ball had struck Bell 2.5 meters from the stumps, which at which point Hawkeye's reliability goes below acceptable levels. So this particular rule was used at that point in time, and Ian Bell was given not out. But Dhoni complained about the rule, and during the World Cup, the rule was changed.
Amazing.
That is the BCCI holding the ICC by its balls.
It's called
by the balls, yeah. So during the tournament, it changed. So I mean, to be honest, of course, for all Indian fans, this World Cup is quite memorable because this is the first time we saw our team in the World Cup. But to be fair, it just seemed like all the cards were stacked. Benefit. It just felt so much that way. Like it just felt so fixed, not in the Azhar Jadeja sense, but financially manipulated by India. I mean, the 2003 World Cup is a lot more emotional for me, because it was just
that loss felt a lot. So you're basically saying that loss felt a lot more authentic than this win.
That's not what happened, Srikit. Between 2003 and 2011, you got on Twitter and became more cynical. That's all.
Fair. Okay. We have to thank England for two great matches that they provided. There was a tie with India
in Bangalore,
320 or something.
338.
Yeah, and the other one was where they lost to Ireland. It was one of the greatest ODIs ever, when Ireland they were chasing some 330. Ireland were 120 for 5 or something. Kevin O'Brien comes in and whacks like 130 or something of 80 balls or something. That was a great match.
But also, comeback man Yuvraj Singh. What a performance!
Yeah. Man, what a brilliant! Like, coming back from cancer and becoming man of the tournament. Like, that's the true hero's journey of a story. Yeah, so cool. Moving along to the
2015
World Cup, hosted by Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
This was, this match. I mean, the India-Pakistan rivalry actually got onto marketing levels with Mauka coming in over here. And in fact, the India-Pakistan matches were sold out within 12 minutes of going on sale. Yeah, so it was probably the fastest sellout of a match ever. So in fact, the Mocha thing was so iconic at that time that it actually entered the world of cricket, where they were like, in fact, when India actually lost, like it was taken up by fans around the subcontinent. Like Pakistan were taking it personally, where when finally India lost against Australia in the semi-final, a large number of Bangladeshi and Pakistani fans called up BCCI's headquarters singing the song, and which actually caused the BCCI to disconnect their lines temporarily.
Amazing.
This is like
Afridi
that,
went up on a TV show and like sang the jingle on air in Pakistani TV. So when they got knocked out, like it was that iconic, like one of the greatest real-time marketing campaigns of all time. And so some odd quirks of the rule had took place, where James Anderson was run out in the Australia versus England match, and he was run out, and straight afterwards James Taylor was given out LBW. When James Taylor's decision was reviewed and overturned, ICC admitted that the ball should have been declared dead. So once if the appeal has been made for an LBW and it's been reviewed, the ball gets dead, but James Anderson was given run out afterwards. So it was a major quirk at that time. There was also the Sri Lanka versus South Africa. South Africa's choking.
How did they?
This time was not as much of a choke, but they actually played. They played really well. I mean, overall they played very well. Finally got to the semi-final.
Right? Yeah.
Semi-final, and they were they had a much bigger. I mean, they could have had a much bigger target, but the rain shortened their innings. And finally, they were knocked out by a South African-born player called Grant Elliott, who kind of played an innings of his life to guide New Zealand to the World Cup final.
Which is amazing, because in 2019, it was a New Zealand-born batsman that knocked New Zealand.
That screwed up.
Wow.
That knocked New Zealand out.
Amazing.
So,
I can see this call for stop immigration and all that. Okay.
But 2015 was also the last time. In 2007, we were like, okay, we won the World Cup using Joginder Sharma as a bowler. In 2015, we had Mohit Sharma leading the attack, who we've never heard of since and will never again hear.
There were two very when I was looking through the scorecards of the whole thing, because I like doing things like that, two things took out. One, there were just so many 300 plus scores, dude. What a high scoring tournament. That is almost it was ridiculous. So there were 3 scores of 400 plus. Yeah. There were 4 scores of 350 plus, less than 350 to 400, and there were 21 scores of 300 to 349. That is crazy. And there were 2 double centuries, man.
Yeah.
Chris Gayle and Martin Guptill. Yeah.
But this was also the World Cup when Brendan McCullum, AB de Villiers, all of these guys were just turning it on.
In fact, one match, AB de Villiers, he scored 166 in 62 balls.
Yeah. What is a strike rate?
And the other thing was all the minnow matches as they were actually all pretty tight actually. If I were to give you an example, New Zealand beat Australia by 1 wicket. Both teams were on 150. Not exactly minnows, but yeah. Okay. But I'll point out examples. Okay, Scotland scored 318 for 8, and Bangladesh chased that down 322 for 4. Then UAE scored 285, and Zimbabwe beat that with 286. UAE scored 278, and Ireland just beat that by 279. Ireland scored 331, and Zimbabwe just fell short by 326. So a lot of high-scoring thrillers from these, young teams, as it were.
That's the exact opposite of how the ICC saw it, because they chucked out all the minnows after this World Cup.
And there was a huge outcry, right? All the minnows saying we've provided such great cricket.
I think the politically correct term is associate nations.
What did we say? African American. Okay. Wow. And for whatever it's worth, Tim Southee took 7 for 33.
Yeah. But this was supposed to be Brendan McCullum's World Cup, no? He was just going at it hammer and tongs till he basically defined how New Zealand played that World Cup in his last hurrah. Unfortunately, with a really terrible finals
Let's not talk about that final.
Yeah.
The only memorable part of that final is the fact that it's the largest ever crowd to watch an ODI match, which is 93,013 people at the MCG.
We'll show them.
Yeah. Unofficial numbers.
So that is 2015, and of course the 2019 World Cup just got over.
Yes.
And
that's another final that New Zealand doesn't want to talk about, keeping the tradition very much alive.
So, following Chuck's disdain for the minnow teams, there were no associate teams included in this particular World Cup. They also went back to the 1992 format of basically all teams playing against each other once, and then finally going out the best person in the league table to be, which I feel is the most fair version
best
of
format ever.
Yeah, best format ever to like actually go there, because every team kind of gets a fair chance of making it to the quarterfinals, the semi-finals. And this was also the most watched tournament of cricket ever, with 2.6 billion people watching it.
I'm not surprised. More people have access, and people are like, the population is just increasing. I don't think this is a surprise.
Yeah, and this tournament also saw a big record. Before we even get to, I mean, there are not too many talking points other than the final on this particular.
No, actually, this World Cup was the exact inverse of 2015, where we thought 2015 we didn't expect so many big scores. This World Cup we went in saying everything is going to be 350 plus.
Yeah, and the first few matches were that way, if I remember.
Yeah, do you know how many 250 plus scores New Zealand made in this tournament?
How many?
Zero.
Huh?
One.
Yeah.
One.
Against West Indies, which they somehow salvaged with one shot hit by Carlos Brathwaite, which they would have otherwise lost. So this is the team that you guys are rooting for, which is playing really boring cricket, defending 241 runs.
New Zealand literally got to like the final like on technicalities almost.
How did South Africa I mean, that is a question to be asked.
No, this time South Africa was terrible from the get-go. They lost to England in the opener. They lost to Bangladesh. They were roundly thrashed by India. And then in the last match, they woke up and kicked Australia in the butt and put them out of the World Cup.
Yeah, fair enough.
Making them play England.
South Africa's modus operandi is that when the pressure is off, they will do the most amazing things ever.
Super.
Yeah, and so another, speaking of the only person to live up to the big score prediction for this particular World Cup was a certain Mr. Rohit Sharma, who, I mean, he actually broke the record for the most centuries in the World Cup with 5. And he scored 648 runs in just 9 innings. So, I mean, Sachin in the 2003 World Cup, he had to take 11 innings to score
673 runs.
To score 673, yeah,
Very
673 runs. Yeah, so I mean, Rohit Sharma could definitely have done that if he had not scored just a 1 against New Zealand. And that 1 against New Zealand set up the greatest final and arguably the greatest ODI of all time. And before we even get into the final, let's look at the day the final was held. Is arguably one of the greatest sporting days of all time.
Yeah.
So
it is by far.
Yeah. So I mean, there was Novak Djokovic versus Roger Federer with one of the longest contesting the longest ever singles finals in Wimbledon history. Lewis Hamilton winning the British Grand Prix on the same day. Even one more not mentioned sporting event on that day.
Match, right?
Yeah, Senegal beating Tunisia by an extra time own goal after both teams missed penalties in regular time. And Tunisia, after the extra time goal was scored, were awarded another penalty which was rescinded by VAR. So I mean, this was one full drama, excitement.
Technology
match.
Aided, new rules aided. Day, basically.
But quite sure there weren't 2.6 billion people watching Senegal versus Tunisia.
So but the crowning glory of this golden sporting Sunday was the final itself. Sorry, Tony, you were saying something.
Yeah, wasn't this the first Wimbledon final to be decided on the tie-break as well? Because before that, you always needed to have a difference of 2. There's no finals at tie-break. So. Yeah, so quite a crazy day. And the game itself, the crowning glory, the game itself was like a game of centimeters, as they put it. Like it was the
centimeters between Trent Bolt's heel and the boundary rope as his catch turned into a 6.
Yeah,
the centimeters of
I
Ben
know which
Stokes
article
diving back.
I know which article you're reading. This is a New Zealand Herald article, right? It's a beautiful article about
Beautifully
centimeters.
written. Like, I had to copy this particular section that said that centimeters of Ben Stokes' diving bat and the centimeters between Martin Guptill's bat and the crease as he dove for the winning run. So, I mean, this was, at Ben Stokes also it was a retribution match because he in the 2016 World Cup, in the World T20 final, he was like Carlos Brathwaite whacked him for 4 sixes when 19 runs were needed of the last over. So for him to win man of the match was like a personal redemption for him. The big point of contention was Kumar Dharmasena's decision to give England 6 runs following that overthrow boundary.
So basically this was a match of close margins and intense emotion. So like centimeters and centimeters.
Okay, I don't think we can do any better than that. I was going to give a speech about Kane Williamson, but I don't think we can do anything like that. One thing I will say, 2019 World Cup seems to have revoked a bit of interest in 50-50 in ODI cricket, right? Like
definitely.
Maybe.
Maybe, okay.
I mean, at least, as a format, it's really not going anywhere. But also, it's sort of like from Test cricket is dead, we went to ODI cricket is dead, but now everything is like DOA.
Okay. So there was another, and when once England won the World Cup, there was a very infamous tweet by Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's a Brexiteer, who said that England clearly don't need Europe to win. And while everyone criticized him for it, to be very fair, I mean, on a technicality, to be fair to him, England really did not need Europe to win, but they needed almost every other continent to win. Because Ben Stokes is from New Zealand, Adil Rashid from Pakistan, Moeen Ali also from Pakistan originally, Jason Roy from South Africa,
Jofra Archer
from West Indies, and Morgan from Ireland. So 7 out of 15 cricketers playing for England were from other parts of the globe, but definitely not from anywhere else in Europe. So and also, speaking of Brexit, Theresa May in her final days invited the England cricket team and for her...
that is mic drop moment, dude. That is mic drop.
Yeah, final you to Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson.
Super.
So we're going to do a very, very quick rapid fire quiz on the World Cup. Guys, most countries that have hosted a single World Cup.
5. Unless you're not counting England.
No, West Indies.
Yeah,
yes.
8 in 2007.
West Indies is not a country.
Barbados, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Antigua and Barbuda, and Grenada, and St. Kitts and Nevis.
Nice. Okay. Move.
The umpire who has appeared in the most World Cup finals.
Oh, that's a good one.
David Shepherd.
Dickie Bird.
No.
Oh, not.
Ooh.
No, man. You
Finger
got us
of death.
Finger of death.
Steve Buckner
In 5 World Cup finals.
Oh, 5.
And so most wickets in a tournament.
This will be 23 by Mitchell Stark.
27, no?
No?
27 by Mitchell Stark in 2019.
Correct.
That's correct. And in fact, funnily enough, he also holds a more impressive record, which is in the previous World Cup also, he had, in the 2015 World Cup also, the most number of wickets. He had 22 in 2015 as well. So, so Mitchell Stark broke Glenn McGrath's record of 26 in 2007.
There's a stark difference between...
Okay, I knew that was coming. I was hoping it wouldn't come from you.
Sorry. Don't mid-slap me.
Best bowling figures in a World Cup?
Best bowling figures in a World Cup or World Cup match?
World Cup match, in a World Cup match.
7 for 15.
7 for 15.
McGrath.
In 2003, Glenn McGrath versus Namibia. And best Indian bowling figures?
6 for 23.
Of course.
Yes, banana moment, never forget.
And what bowling record was broken in the 2003 World Cup, which was and still is a record in all of recorded cricket?
4 of 4? Malinga?
No.
Fastest ball?
No.
Oh, fastest ball, yeah.
Fastest ball, 161.3.
Shoaib Akhtar to Nick Knight, if I remember.
Yeah, Nick Knight. Yeah. What does Canada's only decent World Cup record have to do with Bihar CM?
With Bihar CM? Okay. Okay, let's. Canada's only decent performance was John Davison's the fastest century thing ever.
Okay,
the other one. The other one. Okay, I don't know. Bihar CM.
Okay, it's their youngest ever cricketer, age 16 years, 283 days, is called Nitish Kumar.
Whoa.
And here I was trying to think like this guy Mulayam had done that Man Mein Hai Mulayam, so I was thinking like Billy Joel some connection. Was Billy Joel Canadian? Is his son playing?
I was going to say like Canada basically bowled like it was cattle fodder or something.
Oh my God.
For more on this, we'll be doing a cryptic crossword interview with Tony in a few weeks.
Oh God, yeah. And
yes,
finally, what was the narrowest margin for victory in a World Cup match?
0.
I mean, technically 0. Technically it's 0. So we'll.
No, it's actually 9 boundaries.
Oh, no, okay, fair.
Yeah,
okay, fair
cool.
enough. Okay.
26-17.
Yeah.
And with that, we have reached the very end of this 2-episode retrospective on all the World Cups, cricket World Cups.
Quite a change, no? From 75, where it was some apologetic tournament where people didn't know what was happening. Some 10 ODIs or 15 ODIs had played before the first ever World Cup, and now look where we are.
Yeah, even a whole Women's World Cup.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, this was
from Sunny Paji's 36 in 60 overs to
Dhoni's 36 in 50 overs, possibly.
No, but my favorite, to be honest, my favorite World Cup innings of all time wasn't even a century. It was Sachin's 98 of 75 against Pakistan in 2003. It's like, what a
baller that
killer.
was.
I mean, he had taken Shoaib Akhtar like to bits, and this was right after he had bowled the fastest ball and all that stuff. So it was like, I mean, truly emotional match that was.
Cool.
But yeah,
very random ending that was.
Just like the 2019 World Cup.
Okay,
you can do worse than end on Sachin.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's true. If there is one lesson that you've taken away from all this, it's do your math, especially if you're South African. Score boundaries. Like just like it doesn't matter. Like you could be making a PowerPoint presentation to your client. Just take a bat and score a boundary. It will come back to hit you in the ass at some point of time.
Yeah.
And
what would Naren say? South African, emigrate to another country.
Okay. So what would Naren say to end this? Stay
safe. Stay
calculated.
Stay what?
Calculated.
Stay calculated. Yeah, sure. Stay calculated and stay simplified. Sure. Why not? Bye, guys. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, guys. This is me, Eva Bhatt, your host for the podcast 9XM Soundcast. This podcast is produced by India's largest music network, 9X Media. We have been catering music and you have been enjoying. And now we bring you a podcast where music inspires. Every week, I interact with some of the best minds from the music industry to understand their creative discipline. Every new episode will feature artists who will share inspiring notes from their journey, some valuable tips for budding artists. So do subscribe to the podcast where music inspires. Enjoy a brand new episode of 9XM Soundcast every Tuesday on IVM Podcast app or website or wherever you get your podcast from.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Screwella, first-generation entrepreneur and co-founder at Upgrad. My podcast, Dreaming with Your Eyes Open, is a companion podcast to my best-selling book, Dream with Your Eyes Open. On this podcast, I talked to Amit Doshi, founder of IVM Podcast, about my entrepreneurial journey. I walk you through my successes and failures, mostly my failures, and the lessons that I learned from my experiences, family, and colleagues. What was my first entrepreneurial venture? Why I chose Japanese cartoons over animation cartoons on Hangama? Why did I sell my stake at UTV to Disney? Find out all this and more on the Ronnie Screwella Podcast, Dreaming with Your Eyes Open. New episodes out every Tuesday on the IVM Podcasts app, website, or wherever you listen to podcasts.